There's a specific moment that happens in a grocery store that nobody talks about. You're moving through the aisles, cart half full, and you pick something up. Nothing extravagant, maybe a nicer cut of meat or a bottle of wine for the weekend. And before it even hits the cart, your brain runs the math. Not consciously, just automatically. A quiet background calculation that checks the cart total against what's left in checking until Friday. And depending on the answer, you put it back. You don't feel poor when that happens. You feel responsible. Disciplined even. Like you're doing the right thing. Here's the part nobody says out loud. That reflex, that automatic, involuntary financial triage you run at the grocery store, is not a personality trait. It is not discipline. It is a symptom. And it has a name. Middle class broke. Not poverty, not destitution, not the kind of broke that makes the news. The specific, invisible, exhausting kind of broke where you earn enough to feel stable. Enough to look fine from the outside. Enough to tell yourself you're doing okay. But never quite enough to actually get ahead. The kind of broke where the money comes in and the money goes out, and the distance between those two events is always just a little too short. My name is Nick, and I spend a genuinely uncomfortable amount of time thinking about why smart, hardworking people keep ending up in the same financial place no matter how many raises they get. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right and somehow still running in place, subscribe and hit that like button, because today we're mapping out the 3 specific moments when the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And a third one that most people never actually reach, but the ones who do can never unsee it. Quick thing first. I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. These are patterns, observable, documented, wildly under-talked about patterns that show up across income levels, zip codes, and job titles. And the first one is going to sound so familiar, it might actually bother you. Let's start with a number that should reframe everything. The median American household income right now is about $84,000 a year. That's 2 working adults in a lot of households, or 1 person doing reasonably well. By almost any global standard, that is not a small amount of money. And yet, according to a 2024 Bankrate survey, 56% of Americans say they couldn't cover a $1,000 emergency expense from savings. More than half. At the median income. Let that sit for a second. If you earn $84,000 a year and work for 40 years, you will have earned $3.36 million over your lifetime. $3.36 million. And the majority of people who earn something close to that number will arrive at retirement with less than $100,000 saved. Not because they spent it all on vacations, not because they were reckless or careless or didn't care. Because the money moved through their lives like water through a screen. Always present, never accumulated. That is the map. Now here are the 3 moments when you finally see it. Moment number 1, the paycheck proximity trap. Picture this. It's a Tuesday, not a special Tuesday, just a regular one, and your car makes a noise it didn't make on Monday. Nothing catastrophic, just a noise. A rational adult noise that probably costs somewhere between $300 and $800 to fix. And your first thought, not your second thought, your first thought is, when does my paycheck hit? Not, I'll pull from savings. Not, I'll just pay cash. The instinctive first move is a mental calculation of how many days stand between you and your next deposit. And then you realize something. You already know that number, without checking. You know exactly how many days until payday, because you've been keeping track without realizing you were keeping track. The clock has been running in the background the whole time. That's moment 1. The moment you realize your financial life runs on a 2-week schedule, regardless of what you earn. And here's what makes this particular trap so effective. It doesn't care about your income. This is the part that genuinely shocks people when they see it clearly, because the assumption is always that the paycheck proximity problem is an income problem. Earn more, problem solved. Get the raise, buy the breathing room. It isn't that simple. There is a documented, repeatedly observed phenomenon in behavioral economics, sometimes called lifestyle creep, and sometimes called the hedonic treadmill. And it works like this. Every time your income goes up, your spending adjusts upward to match it. Not all at once. Gradually, almost invisibly. The apartment gets a little nicer. The car payment gets a little higher. The restaurants get a little better. The subscriptions quietly multiply. The gym you swore you'd actually use. The streaming services you forgot you signed up for. The delivery app that made sense during the week you were slammed at work and never got canceled. And within about 6 to 12 months of a raise, you are right back to the same margin, or thinner of one, than you had before. The number on the paycheck is bigger. The distance between paycheck and empty is exactly the same. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances found that families in the $75,000 to $100,000 income range carry a median of just $8,000 in liquid savings. $8,000. On a household income that sounds, by all reasonable measures, pretty solid. The paycheck proximity trap doesn't get solved by earning more. It just recalibrates around the new number and waits. This is why you can sit down with a 24-year-old making $38,000 and a 41-year-old making $105,000 and hear almost identical stories about money. Both of them feel like they're one bad month away from trouble. Both of them would struggle to explain exactly where the money goes. Both of them intend to start saving more. Next month, when things settle down, once this thing is paid off. The income is different. The architecture is the same. The trap isn't the paycheck. The trap is the life built to consume income at exactly the rate it arrives, at every income level, indefinitely. The $38,000 version and the $105,000 version look completely different from the outside. Functionally, financially, they are nearly identical. Most people brush past this moment. They fix the car, they move on. They half decide to build an emergency fund and don't. The ones who stop and actually sit with the discomfort of that Tuesday, who let the question land instead of deflecting it, those are the ones who eventually make it to moment two. Moment number two, the upgrade treadmill. Meet Jason. Jason is 34. He works in project management for a mid-sized construction company. He has been promoted twice in the last 6 years. His income has gone from $62,000 to $91,000 over that stretch. Nearly a $30,000 raise, $30,000 more dollars a year than he used to make. Here is what Jason's life looks like today compared to 6 years ago. He moved from a $1,100 apartment to a $1,750 one because the new place has in-unit laundry and a gym, and he deserved it after the second promotion. He traded in a paid-off 2016 Honda Accord for a 2023 truck on a $680 monthly payment because he had been driving the Accord for years and the truck felt like time. He started eating lunch out most days instead of bringing it because $12 for a sandwich is nothing when you're making real money. His streaming services went from 1 to 4. He joined a golf club. The golf club was $180 a month, but his buddy was already a member, and it felt like the right move professionally. He took a nicer vacation last year than he would have taken 6 years ago and didn't feel guilty about it because he'd earned it. None of these decisions are crazy. Each one, taken individually, made complete sense at the time. The apartment is genuinely nicer. The truck is reliable. The lunches are convenient. The golf is fun. The vacation was great. But here is Jason's savings rate today versus 6 years ago. 6 years ago, making $62,000, Jason was saving about $400 a month. Not because he was especially disciplined, just because there wasn't much left over after the basics, and $400 felt like something. Better than nothing. Today, making $91,000, Jason saves $310 a month. Less. Less than he saved when he earned $29,000 less per year. His income went up 47%. His savings went down 22%. And Jason, if you sat him down and asked him directly, would tell you he is in a much better financial position than he was 6 years ago. He has a nicer life. He has proof that the work paid off. He just doesn't have any more money than he did before. In some measurable ways, he has less. This is the upgrade treadmill. And the reason it's so persistent is that every step of it felt like arriving. The apartment upgrade felt like reward. The truck felt like overdue. The golf club felt like professional investment. The nicer vacation felt like perspective and self-care, and completely reasonable. The problem is never any single decision. The problem is the pattern underneath them all. Every increase in income was converted almost automatically into an increase in lifestyle. The gap between earning and spending never widened. It just repriced itself at a higher number and kept running. A Vanguard study found that households earning between $75,000 and $150,000 had a median savings rate of around 7 to 8%. The recommended rate for building actual long-term financial security is 15 to 20%. The middle of the middle class is saving at roughly half the rate it needs to. Not because the income isn't there, but because the lifestyle expanded to absorb it before a different choice could be made. And here is the brutal irony sitting at the center of this moment. The people on the upgrade treadmill often look the most financially successful from the outside. Nice apartment, nice car, good restaurants, regular vacations, all the visible signals of someone who has figured it out. The actual financial progress, the savings rate, the net worth trajectory, the retirement account balance, almost nowhere. Moment 2 is when you run the numbers on the last 6 years and realize that the raises weren't building wealth. They were funding a more expensive version of the same financial life. The income grew, the outcome didn't. Some people hit this moment and correct course. Most people feel the discomfort, recognize it on some level, and step back onto the treadmill. Because stepping off means giving up things that now feel normal. The apartment that was a reward now feels like a basic. The truck payment is just part of the monthly math. Packing lunch feels like going backward. And the things you used to be completely fine without have quietly become the baseline your lifestyle defends. That feeling, that specific resistance to returning to a version of your life you already lived, that's the mechanism that keeps the treadmill running. And it leads directly to the third moment, the one that's the quietest and the most clarifying. Moment number 3, the retirement math moment. This one doesn't happen in a parking lot or at a restaurant. It usually happens late at night, alone, on a couch, in front of a screen. And it starts with a simple question that most people spend their entire working life successfully not asking. If I stopped working today, how long could I actually last? Not theoretically, specifically, with actual numbers. You open the calculator, you look at the 401k balance. You add in what's actually in savings. You find the total. And then you Google what you actually need to retire. The commonly cited benchmark is 25 times your annual expenses. That comes from the 4% rule, the idea from financial planner Bill Bengen that you can withdraw about 4% of your portfolio annually and have it last roughly 30 years. So if you spend $60,000 a year, you need $1.5 million. If your household spends $80,000 a year, you need $2 million. And then you look at your number. For most Americans in their late 30s and early 40s, that number is somewhere between $40,000 and $120,000, which held up next to a $1.5 or $2 million target doesn't feel like progress. It feels like standing at the base of a mountain you didn't realize you were supposed to be climbing, and the clock has been running the whole time. According to the Federal Reserve, the median retirement savings for Americans aged 35 to 44 is about $45,000. For 45 to 54, it climbs to about $115,000. These are not irresponsible people. These are people who worked, paid their bills, raised families, and told themselves they would figure out retirement when they got a little further along. And then they got further along, and the number didn't move the way they expected it to. Here's why. The math on retirement savings is not linear, and it is not forgiving when you start late. It's not even close. Someone who invests $500 a month starting at 25 at a 7% average return ends up with about $1.3 million by age 65. Someone who waits until 35 and invests the same $500 a month at the same return ends up with around $620,000. Same contributions, same rate of return, 1 decade of delay, half the retirement. The middle class largely did not receive that math, not in school, not from parents who were running the same treadmill, not from employers who offered a 401k and called it done. They were told to work hard, get promoted, save for retirement, not how compounding works over time, not what the actual target is, not what it requires, starting at what age, to actually get there. So the retirement math moment isn't really just about retirement. It is the moment when the full picture arrives in one place at the same time. The paycheck proximity trap, the upgrade treadmill, 30 years of deferring the actual calculation. All of it lands in one quiet, deeply uncomfortable late-night spreadsheet. The game isn't rigged against you in some dramatic or conspiratorial way. It's just that nobody handed you the rulebook, and the people who profit most from you not having it have no incentive to give it to you. Which means the exit from middle-class broke is not a moral one. It is not about wanting it more or trying harder or being more deserving. It is mechanical. There are specific levers, and once you can see them clearly, you can pull them. Here's the one that changes the math more than anything else. The gap, not the income. The gap between what comes in and what goes out. The most powerful financial variable in your entire life is not your salary. It is the percentage of your income that never touches your lifestyle at all. That gets routed somewhere else before your spending can adapt to it, and then stays there. Personal finance research is consistent on this point to a degree that should be uncomfortable for anyone still waiting for the raise to solve it. The difference in long-term wealth accumulation between a household saving 5% and a household saving 20% is not 15%. It is exponential. Because every dollar saved at 20% is also a dollar the lifestyle never calibrated around, which means you never need a raise to replace it, which means the next raise becomes a genuine choice. Widen the gap further or let it compound longer, instead of a foregone conversion into something bigger with a monthly payment. The households that build meaningful wealth on middle-class incomes are not primarily the ones who earn more. They are, with striking and somewhat boring consistency, the ones who decided on a specific percentage, automated it before the rest of the paycheck became visible, and never renegotiated it downward. The lifestyle never saw the money. The lifestyle never missed it. And compounding did the work that no amount of promotion or income growth would have done on its own. The way to start isn't perfect. It's honest. Whatever percentage you can actually do right now, 3%, 5%, you automate it the day the paycheck hits. And then every 6 months, you increase it by 1 percentage point. Not because you are trying to transform your financial life overnight, because you are trying to make the gap permanent before the upgrade treadmill locates it and absorbs it. That's the framework, not a new idea, not a secret. The one mechanic that consistently separates the people who watch their income grow into actual wealth from the people who watch their income grow into a more expensive version of the same position. Now let me take you back to the grocery store. That moment, the one where your hand reaches for something and your brain runs the math before you've made a conscious decision. That moment doesn't disappear immediately. Even for people who get this right, it takes time for the financial reflexes to recalibrate. The 2-week clock doesn't stop ticking the day you start automating savings. But here's what actually changes. The people who make it through all 3 moments and pull the lever, they still do math at the grocery store. But the math is different. They're not calculating whether they can afford it. They're calculating whether they want to spend it. And those are completely different questions. One comes from scarcity, the other comes from choice. That shift from scarcity to choice is the entire point. Not millions, not a yacht, not the life they photograph for a truck commercial. Just the quiet, genuinely radical difference between a financial life that runs on a 2-week clock and one that doesn't. You can earn $84,000 a year and get there. You can earn $140,000 a year and never get there. The income is a tool. The gap is the strategy. And the window to start widening it is always smaller than it feels right now, and always larger than it will feel in 5 years. If this gave you a name for something you've been feeling for a while, subscribe. Because next we're breaking down the specific tax trap that quietly activates the moment your income starts to grow. The one that eats the gains before you ever see them. I'll see you in that one.